First, we got to talk about what is a need and what is a want, right? So these are our emotions playing on us for wants, and needs are things that we have to have in order to survive, right? So if you don't have a need, you won't survive. For example, needs are really simple. You can probably think of many: food, water. If you don't have water for 3 days, you die, right? So that's a need. You got to be able to afford water and food. If you don't have food for 3 months, you die. Shelter, if you freeze. Car, usually in the United States, you need a car. Sometimes you can bus, sometimes you can bike, but I would just say that's probably a necessity for opening up your job market opportunities. Gas, if you have a car, is a need. Clothing, warm clothing, quality clothing, things like that are all needs. Shoes, etc. So you can increase that list and you keep going, right? So those are needs, things that you have to have in order to survive, right? A want is basically anything else, anything that you would enjoy that makes life easier, but if you didn't have it, you probably wouldn't die, whereas a need, you might not survive, or you could really cripple yourself, for example. And again, when you come into the wants, this is where our emotions really start to tug at us, because logically, our emotions really desire food. We get hungry, right? We get thirsty, right? Those are all things that our brain, has as indicators of what we need to be focusing on. But then once we have those satiated, a lot of times we can jump too quickly into fulfilling our wants when we really need to being smart about how we use our money. The goal is to cover your expenses first. So this is like the basic understanding of what you're trying to do with money in order to not feel as stressed as most people who, end up becoming living paycheck to paycheck, which is something we really want to avoid, right? We'd like to be building wealth. We'd like to be saving money. We'd like to be in a good place in life where money is not a stressor. So the order of operations is like this. The goal is to cover your needs first: food, water, car, shelter, gas, stuff like that, right? Then save an emergency fund. So have some backup money to cover things in case something happens. You lose your job, car gets, broken down, who knows, but you always want to have some money left over, in a savings account, which we'll talk about later, right? Where you are safe. It's emergencies only. You don't touch it. You leave it there. Then you can think about some of your wants. Until you have those first two, you can't do the wants because it will cause pain. It will not be good for you, right? So you've got to have discipline in your life. And in this area, it's, again, poor emotional money decisions can lead to debt and just a lot of, hurt relationships, begging your family for money, not fun things to do. So let's avoid being broke all the time and let's have a good 20s, right? So that's what this is all about. So here are the actual basic principles for money management that I came up with. This is not an exhaustive list. This is not a perfect list, but this is a simple list to get started. And after making this list a habit in your life, then I would really encourage you to expand on this list, read books about it, ask people about it who are financially successful, and learn more and more. Again, don't just stop at this list. That would be complacency. You don't want to be complacent in your life. You always want to be growing. So number one, always have a job or income sources that cover your needs. Always have a job. Please, always have a job or a way that you are making money. Some people become self-employed. That's great. I'm self-employed. I love that lifestyle. Some people have to have a job, based on whatever skills, right? So no shame either way, but have an income source. In order to live, you have to have money coming in order to budget to make sure you satisfy all of your needs. And if you have leftovers after an emergency fund, again, that's when you buy your wants. Part of this is always keep a job, right? So a lot of people can get a job, but can you keep a job? And that's where you need to have some principles in place to set yourself up for success. So one of those things is always being 15 minutes early to everything that you're doing. And I'll tell you, sometimes we get busy and I am bad at being on time, which is self-employed. It doesn't matter. But if I had a job and I was late all the time, for example, that would be awful. Always be 15 minutes early. If you plan to be early, anything can happen. You can still be on time. Always show up to work on the days you're scheduled to work. Keep a calendar on your phone or written down on the fridge, right? Just have these small things in place so you can always remind yourself when you are working and you don't miss. Because if you always just show up and you're 15 minutes early, you will always have a decent relationship with your employer and you won't have to worry about getting fired. And the reason people get fired, again, it just usually comes down to being late, not showing up, not following through on their commitments. If you can't be trusted to follow through on your word, that's when people have a tough time working with you. Number 3 here, always keep a really consistent schedule. And this one's really important because it plays into our emotions that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But don't go to bed past 10 o'clock. Be in bed by 10 p.m. on the days you work the next day. And for young people, I bet you that's like a hard thing to do. But sleep can make or break a job for you. If you are tired, you are emotionally more susceptible to anger. You can have a short fuse. You can make poor choices. It heightens your emotions. So if you're emotional, right, that's when you can yell at someone at work or be late or rationalize, overthink not going because you don't feel good, right? So get sleep, have a consistent schedule, right? One of the funny things too about money is there's another article that people do a lot of online shopping by money.com. As it turns out, 60% of women and 40% of men have trouble sleeping because they're stressed out all the time, a lot of times about money or their lives or whatever. And from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., there's a huge spike in purchases online, because what people will do is they'll get tired and they won't be able to fall asleep. They'll get on their phone and they'll make these impulse purchases of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of items that they really don't need. They're unnecessary, right? They are wants, not needs, to help themselves feel good or fall asleep. And so again, just cutting off, learning to sleep, controlling your body, learning to train your body to get more sleep, you will make better decisions. I hope this video was somewhat entertaining, likable, and informative. I truly hope that you'll put these ideas into practice, and I would love to hear about how they helped you in your life in the comments below. Just consider supporting my podcast monthly through Anchor. The link's in the description there. Just go ahead and follow the podcast, which is also in the description on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to check out Elevate Wellness if you're interested in personal coaching, fitness, nutrition, and we should be having some live calls in the upcoming weeks and months that are totally free that you can come to and just learn about how to be healthier.